This isn't a secret war of any kind. Michael Adebolajo took a machete and killed his victim in broad daylight. He didn't conceal his weapon or flee the scene. Instead, he spoke to a passerby's camera as he waited for the police to come and arrest him.
We must fight them as they fight us. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. I apologise that women had to witness this today, but in our land, our women have to see the same. You people will never be safe. Remove your government. They don't care about you.
People across Britain, people in every community, I believe, will utterly condemn this attack. We have had these sorts of attacks before in our country, and we never buckle in the face of them.
We have to accept that some of the British foreign policy isn't British, it's American, and some of the American stuff's really problematic.
There's always been a drive toward trying to wage war without sacrificing your own people.
Woolwich is a small town in southeast London's Royal Borough of Greenwich. It was long home to the Royal Artillery and today maintains its military heritage. The Royal Military Barracks was the site of the shooting events at the London 2012 Olympics. This week, the town got its own Twitter hashtag, which has been trending in Britain for the last 3 days. Hours after drummer Lee Rigby was killed here, the far-right English Defence League stormed through town, clashing with the police. It was a rapid and perhaps callous response to a crime that ripped through Britain.
What we've seen is a ratcheting up of tensions. We've seen hysteria about Muslims and Islam, fear and hatred and xenophobia against foreigners and immigrants. And in that political cauldron and in that vacuum, these kind of sparks can cause real damage. And that is the danger, that communities do not turn on themselves.
Overnight, the incidents report group Tell Mama said it logged 38 incidents. In what it says was a tenfold increase in reporting. Some of the victims said they had received death threats. This mosque in Braintree in Essex told Islam Channel an intruder carrying knives entered the building and threatened worshippers. The man, who was named as 43-year-old Jeffrey Ryan, was arrested and charged. It wasn't an isolated incident. A total of 5 mosques were threatened. One had rocks thrown through its windows. By the time the Prime Minister returned in front of the microphone in the morning, the government was clear in its message that Islam has nothing to do with what happened.
This was not just an attack on Britain and on the British way of life. It was also a betrayal of Islam and of the Muslim communities who give so much to our country. Thank you.
But as the Prime Minister went on to pay his respects to the fallen soldier, members of Britain's Muslim community came together to condemn the attacks and distance themselves from its perpetrators. Farooq Murad is the Secretary General of the Muslim Council of Britain, an umbrella organisation which represents more than 400 Islamic groups.
And these people have desanctified this sacred statement. They have insulted Allah and they have dishonoured our faith. This is a truly barbaric act that has no basis in Islam, and we condemn this unreservedly.
Imam Shamsud-Duha is the director of Ibrahim College. He urged Muslims in Britain to look at the events in an empathetic manner.
Of course, try to react and respond and think how they would think if that person was a neighbour. I think our first reaction would be to only think in terms of sympathy, empathy, and we wouldn't be doing political analysis at this stage if it was our neighbour.
Shamsud-Duha also called on the country's media to play a more responsible role.
While the majority of Muslims have absolutely nothing to do with this crime or crimes that are of its ilk, it is important that media coverage doesn't use terms and its coverage doesn't implicate Muslims across all spectrums.
The day Baghdad-style violence came to South London. That's how one British journalist described Wednesday's attack. But machete attacks aren't the kind of violence you find in Iraq, and it's unfair to attribute such killings to Arabs. Instead, this can be described as a homegrown problem. Michael Adebolajo was born in Lambeth and raised in London, reading sociology at the University of Greenwich. We asked a prominent Muslim leader in London about this so-called homegrown threat.
I don't know. I don't agree with the term homegrown. I mean, the global world's a small city now, the whole world. The guys that perpetrated this, they are, born and bred British. Well, one of them is at least, and is a British resident. So, in that sense, have they been abroad to get indoctrinated, or do you need to? I mean, you have the internet, so you can communicate with somebody live, through video, whatever, anywhere, any part of the world. So the notion that there's a factory here in the UK producing this, I don't agree into that. But there are definitely people that have that mindset, even if there are like 5 or 10 of them.
In just over a month's time, London will mark the 8th anniversary of the July 7th attacks. 4 bombs exploded within minutes of each other on London's transport network, killing 56 people, including the 4 homegrown bombers. It was reminiscent of scenes we saw in the aftermath of the September 11th attacks on New York, and a chilling video left by the bombers confirmed the message being sent. The difference between what America calls its terrorism problem and ours was the homegrown nature of the attackers. The 19 hijackers involved in the September 11th attacks were all foreign-born and raised, having briefly trained in the United States. In London, as early as 2005, we were dealing with enemies within our own communities.
This is an age-old problem. The people fighting against occupiers, oppressors, it's from whenever history's ever been recorded, has always happened. Muslims have always defended their homelands and the rest of it. The modern phenomenon of killing innocent people, or anybody's, a legitimate target, happened about, I think, 20 years ago, when Osama bin Laden issued that fatwa, or got people to issue a fatwa for himself. And I remember speaking to a prominent scholar from Pakistan after 9/11, and he said that when the fatwa came to him, he refused to sign it, firstly, and secondly, he was in 2 minds whether to refute it publicly or just to sort of just ignore it. And he later accepted that it was wrong of him not to have refuted it publicly at the time, because that's when the game changed. That's when Muslims, even the extremist sort of right-wing Muslims, were given a legitimate voice to say, yes, you can target whoever you like because the enemy's doing the same or whatever. And now it's come home. I mean, it's July the 7th happened here, but I'm sure if the security service didn't prevent other attacks, it probably would have happened earlier. Others would have happened. So I don't think 2007 is a marking point for Muslims in Britain who've lived in denial that it's a problem, but it doesn't affect us. And the Woolwich incident has brought it home more.
Britain's foreign policy is considered to be one of, if not the primary reason for young British Muslims developing what some people call extremist ideologies. When it comes to controversial policies overseas, the list is endless. Wars on Iraq and Afghanistan, which are considered illegal. Support for Israel, which is considered biased. The silence over America's incarceration of innocent Muslims at the Guantanamo Bay prison camp. The list goes on. Indeed, many Muslims, both inside Britain and outside, view the West's war on terrorism as a war on Islam. But it's stories like that of Grenadier Guardsman Daniel Crook which perhaps enrage the most. Just over a year ago, he was jailed for 11 months after stabbing a 10-year-old Afghan boy. A military court heard how the British soldier had become drunk and then pierced Ghulam Nabi through the kidney. Young Nabi had been asking Daniel Crook for chocolate.
I don't think we have a foreign policy. I think most sensible British people, even right at the top of the political ladders, understand that Great Britain isn't that great anymore. And Tony Blair was pretty much a poodle to the American foreign policy. Globally, the British government has done lots of work to sort of stand apart from some of the American policies. But it's now coming out that although Jack Straw denied in Parliament and said he's not lying about rendition flights and stuff, that the British government, even though people in Whitehall didn't know, parts of the British establishment was aiding and abetting the CIA. So I think we have to accept that some of the British foreign policy isn't British, it's American, and some of the American stuff's really problematic, and we as British people accept that it's problematic, and we have to work with our political leadership to tell them, look, be brave and stand up, and stand up for it.